I'm sorry, yeah. He's here also.
I ran across that was the same thing. And then I went in and broke down and I got hurt. Fire department says there's nothing in the It's one of these little signs.
I came to the short company and I said, I know you were recorded at the second round, and I said, I didn't.
Right now, counting the money although somebody has to be
I remember seeing that on my insurance one revenue stream. Well, strictly one is for veterans care. Well, I've learned about a 10th of what I can learn.
Well, with all due respect, I mean, I need to get 10%. She's not a couple of years of existence, I still put them all up. I hadn't been to Warner's office open meetings laws. I read the new one and it seemed like something wasn't right. I needed to read the whole skimming. They were talking about the agenda. When you said we should take it, It's very vague. Well, hang on.
Good evening. If you all would stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please. Councilman Rogers.
Let us pray. Our God, our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the blessings you've given to each and every one of us. We pray tonight that you'll be with us and guide us as we go about the business of the city. We continue to pray for those serving the armed forces abroad and to harm's way. Be with them, guard them, protect them. These things we pray in Christ's name, and amen.
Amen. Councilman Bibby, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Leach, would you get the sign-in sheet off that table, please? Thank you. Okay. Henry Sawson?
Is this on? Yeah. Excuse me. I haven't been ignoring you guys. I've just been gone at the beach for 18 days. And before I left, I wasn't here for the meeting on the May 31st. It was the one prior to that. I asked a question about inviting the plant manager at Chemours to come to City Council and address open city questions about the CA contamination in the water and stuff. You guys said you'd follow up on that. Did anybody reach out to them?
Well, they're going to decide who will come, if they will come and talk to us. So we have not gotten an answer back yet. So,
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for June the 28th, 2018. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The minutes from the regular council meeting held on June the 14th, 2018 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, and the minutes will stand approved as posted. Report of the treasurer, Councilman Leach.
Yes, Mayor. I have the reconciliation funds dated June 28, 2018 provided by Amy Roberts, City Finance Director. The accounts are current and the city is financially sound.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, there's several significant changes to different line items compared to the one that we had at the last meeting. Could we get a little bit more detail on those changes tonight on this one?
No, sir, we can't, but I will begin to do that. We'll ask Amy to prepare whatever the comparisons are.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, unfinished business. The first item is an ordinance on second reading, amending Municipal Code 545.10. It is an ordinance amending the sale, possession, and discharge of fireworks. Mr. Stogstead?
You want me to read the first part?
Yes, sir.
All right. An ordinance amending Vienna Municipal Code 545.10, fireworks sale, possession, and discharge. Whereas the state of West Virginia repealed certain state codes regarding the regulation of fireworks, and whereas it is the desire of the city of Vienna to keep its ordinances in conformity with West Virginia Code with regard to the sale, possession, and discharge of fireworks, the city of Vienna, with the authority vested in it by West Virginia Code 293E10, hereby acts as follows. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna, Ordinance 545.10, titled Fireworks, Sale, Possession, and Discharge is hereby repealed. In its place is passed as followed. And if you want, I can read it in its entirety, but it's about 5 or 6 pages.
8 pages.
8 pages. Type 11-point font. Single space.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for the approval on second reading of an ordinance amending Vienna Municipal Code 545.10.
I was actually going to ask, and I thought about it a little bit more. Paragraph 4, if you go all the way to the end, it sets the time period, and it says a person may intentionally ignite or discharge fireworks on private property and only with the property owner's permission July 1 through July 7 and December 28th through January 3rd between noon and 10 p.m. between noon and midnight, July 4 and December 31st. And I thought about it, and every part of that's probably practical except for New Year's, because most people probably want to set their fireworks off at midnight. And so I was going to ask if we could amend that from that, just this section dealing with December 31st to noon, December 31st to, we'll say 1 a.m. on New Year's Day, so January 1st. If I could have a motion and a second on that, if you're
Mr.
interested.
Skogstad, you're out of order, sir.
Well, I thought you were going to amend it before we went to the second part.
You're out of order, sir.
I'll let you go.
Thank you very much. You've heard the recommendation of our city attorney. Is there any council member that would like to amend the ordinance as presented to restrict the time down on New Year's to 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock?
You want to do 9?
Is that what you said, sir?
Well, I was going to just leave it as noon, December 31st to 1 a.m. January 1st.
Okay.
However.
We need a motion and a second first, and then you can move to amend it.
That is correct.
Right.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this ordinance on second reading. And now for an amendment, if anyone cares to.
I'll move to amend what Mr. Skogstad has suggested.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, it's moved and seconded that we amend the ordinance as presented. Mr. Skogstad, would you please clarify your language again?
Again, as it's written, to allow fireworks to be set off noon, December 31st to 1 a.m. January 1st, so people can set their fireworks off as the ball falls.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the amendment as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. The amendment passes. We have a motion on the floor for the second reading of the ordinance amending Vienna Municipal Code 545.10, fireworks sale, possession, and discharge as amended by the amendment. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the ordinance as amended on second reading, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'll have a corrected copy sent to Ms. Smith.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to new business. The first item of new business this evening is a resolution for the appointment to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation. This is a resolution appointing Tim Roberts or Bill Moorhead to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna upon recommendation of the Recreation Association that Tim Roberts, a resident of the City of Vienna, is hereby appointed to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation to serve a full regular term. In the event council does not desire to appoint Tim Roberts to the board, the Recreation Association recommends Bill Moorhead to be appointed to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation to serve a full regular term. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution appointing Tim Roberts to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve Tim Roberts to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, can we do a point of order, if we could?
I'll try.
The agenda lists these as two separate resolutions, both of them calling for the appointment to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation.
Yes, sir.
Being as they're listed as two separate resolutions on the agenda.
I can explain that.
Okay,
Wait,
please.
what's your question, though?
Well, my question is, it appears that there's two appointments.
There is.
I must have misunderstood what you said then.
Okay, Mr. Skogstad, you have to listen to the way this thing reads.
The way our ordinance is written, it requires the Vienna, that that board to submit 2 names for each position, one to be in the alternative of the other. And that first resolution is the first appointment with the alternative. The second resolution is to fill the second position with the name and an alternative. So that's why they're separately, even though both resolutions share a name.
So we're not voting on 2 resolutions.
Not right, you are, but not right now. You're voting on the first resolution now and then the second.
Thank you.
There are 2 openings on the park board, so that's the reason to do it. It's a 2-step process, but there are 2 openings on the park board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution appointing Tim Roberts to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. The second resolution is the resolution appointing Bill Moorhead or John Barr to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna, upon recommendation of the Recreation Association, that Bill Moorhead, a resident of the City of Vienna, is hereby appointed to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation to serve a full regular term. In the event council does not desire to appoint Bill Moorhead to the board, the Recreation Association recommends John Barr to be appointed to the Vienna Board of Parks and Recreation to serve a full regular term. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of Bill Moorhead to the Board of Parks and Recreation.
I move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution appointing Bill Moorhead to the Board of Parks and Recreation. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the appointment of Bill Moorhead to the Board of Parks and Recreation, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. For all of you that aren't aware, Tim Roberts is with us this evening. Tim, that's Tim Roberts right there. Okay, he's been a long time soccer advocate, and so he's going to bring a lot to the program. And Bill Moorhead has been in the recreation program for how many years, Bruce?
A lot.
A long time. He specializes in floor hockey.
Floor hockey, yes.
But anyway, thank you both for serving. It's great. Steve, you now have a full board, so hopefully you'll be fine there. The next item on our agenda this evening is a resolution establishing a salary increase for full-time employees. The resolution reads, it's a resolution establishing salary increases for full-time permanent employees. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that all full-time permanent employees shall receive a wage increase for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 as follows. All full-time permanent employees shall receive an hourly wage increase of 65 cents in addition to the annual hourly longevity pay increase of 35 cents per hour. This is a total of $1 per hour, and this wage increase is for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. This was included in the annual budget, which we approved earlier. It is simply to enact it so that it goes into effect July the 1st. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution establishing a salary increase for full-time permanent employees.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution establishing the $1 per hour pay increase for full-time permanent employees. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, on this, I don't know if this is, it kind of coincides with the salary increases. You know, we talked at the last city council or the last budget how it was discovered that and I know there's city employees here, I have nothing against them, but this, represent the people of Vienna. And I think about, I look at the insurance that we pay for our city employees. Okay, I know that it was stated that the rates haven't increased since 1999. I mean, that's 18 years. And I know insurance has gone up since 1999. We continue to, I got the rates. I mean, the single person pays $30 a month for full insurance, full coverage insurance. And on top of that, it goes from anywhere from $30 for a single person. Your family can be covered for $129 a month. I mean, for full coverage for $129 a month, That's unheard of in 2018, okay? So I know these rates haven't gone up. I know they're wanting more money, but it also needs to coincide with the premiums for these insurance need to go up. I don't know how this can happen, but I think about, and on top of that, I understand, I want to make sure I'm right, that the city also pays once they meet their deductible, the city pays the first $2,000 of whatever medical claim they have. Is that correct? Anyone answer that?
Yes.
Okay, so we pay, say a full coverage, you pay $129 a month for the family, and then on top of that, once they meet the deductible, whatever that is, maybe it's $500, the city also pays an additional $2,000. So that's quite a hunk of change. I would like to know, I know we can't find out tonight, but I'd like to know how many people have taken advantage of how much, where does that money come from? The $2,000, is that in the budget, or where do those numbers come from?
Yes, it is.
It's in the budget for
And the employees pay $1,250 deductible.
They pay $1,250 deductible, and then everything after that we pay. Okay, so I just want to know. I know the budget's already been submitted, but for next year, I know insurance rates they raise every time. So can we not come up with a percentage, like, so whatever the increase is next year, they pay the same percentage, whether it's 35%. I don't know the answer to this, but I just think that to not have an increase since 1999. To being a city employee, like I say, I know there's 81 city employees. I'll probably frustrate them all by bringing this up, but I represent the city and their money. And I think it's just a lot of money to be spending on insurance. And then addition on top of that, you're talking about $1 an hour increase every year and no insurance increase. So I have a problem with that.
Okay, we can take that up when we do the budget next year. And the statement about $1 increase every year, there have been many years where we've given no raise whatsoever, with the exception of the longevity. So we'll get you some more background data on that, Mike, because historically there's a chart that Amy prepares every year, and Steve Black prepared it from years before that. So at any rate, we will get you that, okay?
I've got a comment on this too, Mayor.
All right.
With respect to city employees, the benefit package that they receive, I'm a private employer of companies where we offer health insurance, multiple companies. And when we look at this, we call it the burdened labor rate, because it's not just the hourly wage. It includes the employer taxes, employee taxes, health insurance, 401k, retirement, all of those things. So when we look at this, Mike, I think what we look at is not just what the health insurance benefit, and of course this was a big issue with the teachers and PEIA as well. And people accept jobs based on that total benefit package. So for example, when we look at this, we need to look at not just what their health insurance benefit is, but what their job is and what that job pays in a private market. Because you can have a situation where, an employee takes a job, he may be a heavy equipment operator, and he's getting paid $25 an hour and has bare bones or no health insurance. Whereas if he takes a job like with the city or with the state as a teacher or whatever, then you're going to see their pay being less. So when we look at this, we need to look at all of that. What are they being paid as a competitive wage with respect to the job they do? And then what part of their compensation are they sacrificing in order to get that better health insurance benefit? So as we look at this, we need to look at it across the board, because as you said, we represent Citizens Vienna, and a part of our job as council is to provide these services to the citizens, which I think most citizens of Vienna think we do provide very good services, and we have good long-term employees that serve that role, and we have to have competitive overall rate structures to keep those employees in place.
We will take that up. We will take that up next year in the budget process. Are there any further comments?
Yeah, there's no way that I can support this evening, and it's not the raise, it's the size of the raise and the method of the raise. The across the board, 65 and 35. I'm a firm believer that pay raises are earned, not given. I've been involved in a lot of company with tens of thousands of employees. I've never worked for a company that just gave raises. They were earned based on an evaluation, based on performance, based on attendance. There's a very large criteria of things that is involved. There again, I'm a firm believer that the pay raises need to be earned, not given. We're giving them across the board, and I do not agree with that.
All right, sir. Any other comments?
No, I second that. I agree with them every time I do. I mean, every person is an individual, And to give a flat out group raise when you have every company has great employees and every company has employees that are subpar, you know, and I don't know who they are in Vienna, but I'm sure there's some. But to give everyone the same raise, that's not rewarding your good workers, but it's rewarding your workers that aren't working as hard as your good ones, you know. So I agree with I don't agree with the flat out straight across raise.
Okay. Any other comments? Then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution approving the $1 per hour pay raise for all full-time permanent employees, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-2. The next item on our agenda this evening is a discussion on the streetscape. Mr. Conley, you requested this?
Yeah, and just basically an overview. We have not spoken about this, I don't think, since last January, and I'm glad to see Tony's here, so if there's any place that I misspeak, please fix me. And I'm just basically going to read a good bit of information here that I have received. We talked about having the two grants, and well, I'll just get right into it and just read exactly from this page. The City of Vienna originally submitted two proposals for the Grand Central Avenue Streetscape project. The first one was for blocks 25 to 30, while the second proposal was from 30th to 34th. The first project was submitted and approved in 2014, while the second one was submitted and approved in 2016. And I want to kind of clarify that just a little bit. When I say submitted and approved, it was submitted and approved for design work only. The design consultant selected for this project is Burgess & Nyepel, Incorporated. On May the 31st of 2017, a scope of work meeting was held with representatives of Burgess & Nyepel, the City of Vienna, and the Department of Highways. At this time, a decision was made to combine the two projects into one, so technically the city now has one project, Grand Central Avenue, from 25th to 34th Streets. After the meeting on May the 31st, 2017, the Department of Highways took all the comments made and developed a revised scope of services, which once again had to be agreed upon by all parties. The Department of Highways, the City of Vienna, and Burgess & Nyepel. This document was agreed upon by all parties, and Burgess & Nyepel was then asked to prepare a cost estimate to do the design work for the entire project. At the same time Burgess & Nyepel prepared its cost estimate, the Department of Highways also prepared an independent estimate. The two estimates were reviewed, and they were different. This required the Department of Highways and Burgess & Nyepel to enter into a negotiation process, and a revised design proposal was developed. The revised design proposal was approved by the Department of Highways in February of this year, 2018. The design proposal is now under review by the Federal Highway Administration, who must provide the authorization on this project. Our point person with Burgess & Nyepel is Steve Statz. I did talk to Steve just a couple of weeks ago, and he did inform me that the authorization for them to proceed was given early this month. Once the Department of Highway receives the authorization from the Federal Highway Administration, they will provide Burgess & Nyepel with a notice to proceed with the design work, which I just mentioned. They just received that like 3 weeks ago. Burgess & Nyepel will then have a minimum of 12 months to develop that design. It can take longer if there are environmental issues, easements to be acquired, etc. Any of these items can not only cause delay, but may require the project or section of the project to be redesigned if things can't be worked out. Once the design work has been approved, the city will have a more accurate cost as to the construction cost of the project. The city will then submit an application to the Department of Highways for the funds. The applications, however, are only submitted one time a year, November through January. So with that being said, and the fact that they're just getting started in early part of June, the chances are it's going to take the minimum of the year. When I spoke to Mr. Stats about that, you know, it's not just an issue with Burgess and Nyepel. There's also the Federal Highways Administration is involved, and the Department of Highways is involved. So there's a lot of different entities and a lot of red tape to go through. So chances are we're looking at it being, I've got some notes here somewhere, we're not going to be done until probably the best June of 19 with the design work, which that means the application for the construction of the work would then begin somewhere around November, December of 2019 or January of 20. So we're a long ways off. And a couple other things that I might add. Once the design project is 30% completed, a meeting will be held to go over what is being done with the prices, the scope of work, etc. And there is also a match for whatever the total cost of that construction ends up being. The city's going to have to pay 20% of the construction cost of whatever that project is. And it sounds like it's going to be a very sizable number. Once the final costs are known, the city will probably, and this is them talking, not me, once the final costs are known, the city will probably need to apply for additional funding from the state, as the previous amounts will probably not be enough to cover this cost. So at some point in time, at the 30%, we'll hopefully have a little bit of a better idea of the cost and the scope, and a little better idea of what the 20% match that the city's going to have to pay will indicate we have to do.
Okay. I'd like to add a few comments to that, if I may. In 2014, the city of Vienna was awarded $35,970 for phase one. In 2016, we were awarded $75,000, which gives us a grand total of $110,970 for this project. The engineering fees for the design work are paid 100% by the state of West Virginia. As we work through this project, the estimates have come in preliminarily at, somewhere in the $600,000 range. The way that works is the state of West Virginia will pick up 80% of that, which means that the city of Vienna would be responsible for the 20%, which is $120,000. Of that $120,000, it can be done in phases, and on the recommendation of the state, we would split that project into 23rd Street to 25th, 25th to 28th, 28th to 34th, and we would do each of those in a phase. So as that is laid out, we would have to add about approximately $40,000 in our annual budget every year to cover our match of that project. 10 years ago, the city of Vienna developed a comprehensive plan for economic development strategies. I happened to have been here at that time and took part in that. One of the things that was in the original plan 10 years ago is to continue to implement streetscape improvements in the city's original downtown. And it says to consider carrying the theme, including street trees, further south along Grand Central Avenue to visually connect the two areas and further enhance safety, lighting, sidewalks, and all improvements to our original downtown area. This was not something that has come up in the last year or two. This has been on the books for over 10 years because the comprehensive plan was approved and adopted by City Council in 2007. Melissa Green, the coordinator, the project manager from the State Department of Highways, has reached out to Tony Tiano and asked her to go ahead and submit the paperwork for the next phase of this. And so we will be filling out the paperwork for the next phase of the project so that when Burgess and Nyepel gets done with the design, we get a chance to have the meetings to see where we're at 30% and 90%. Then we will determine what the cost is. And by that time, since we're into this, hopefully the state will award us another grant, which will reduce our costs even further. But as I said, this has been in the works for over 10 years, and it does take time when you deal with the federal government and the state government. to get things through the process. So I'm very encouraged. I think that this will happen. Mr. Conley's timeline is probably correct. It will probably be 2019 before we start on this project. But based on the conceptual drawings, it will absolutely redo the Grand Central area between 23rd and 34th Street with modern lighting, brick pavers, enhanced safety things for when our pedestrians cross the street, and it will give us a entirely fresh new look. So, any other comments or questions about this project? All right. Mr. Steve Statz, I'd like to introduce to you all, this is the design engineer from Burgess & Nyepel, and beside him is Craig Richards, who you're familiar with. Craig has been involved in most of our water and sewer projects, but Steve is the design engineer that is doing all the work for the city, or you're actually employed by the state of West Virginia, but involving Main Street for the city of Vienna. So thank you both for coming tonight. All right. Moving on then. The last item on our agenda this evening is the status of the plume. Mr. Conley.
And really, when I brought that up last week, the only really question I had was the fact that I had ran into the gentleman at Kimron when he was down there pulling one of those samples, and my simple question was, once that happens, when do we expect to have the next updated chart like the one from their last test? And that was really the only question that I had.
Okay. Mr. Leach?
Yeah, Mayor. After Roger asked that question for that discussion, I did some additional research. A couple of things. First of all, so that everybody's clear, the PCE plume is the source is originally with primarily Vienna dry cleaners, also to a lesser extent Busy Bee cleaners, and then potentially a third unidentified old dry cleaner, maybe between the 30s and 40s that some people remember, but nobody knows who they are. And in 2000, in the late 90s, they identified the groundwater contamination. Vienna closed several water wells, as I understand, relocated those 13 and 14. And then this was designated as a federal EPA Superfund site cleanup. The city of Vienna is not a party to that cleanup, and we are not responsible for any part of that activity, unlike Manville, which of course we own and we are responsible in the voluntary remediation program. They do periodic updates to that, and the remediation system they put in is basically what's called an air sparging system, where they inject air into the ground, get the PCEs to rise, and then collect those and extract them from the groundwater. This is primarily a groundwater contamination from those dry cleaning fluids. They've been sampling from 2005, and in fact, we just received the updated report. I had 2014. There was an update done in March of 2018. The plume is being well controlled with respect to the remediation, and the levels have dropped substantially. But also, all groundwater migrates, and it migrates typically toward the river. And they are watching this plume, and it is migrating. And in fact, one of the issues that occurred is in 2002, when the Johns Manville production water wells were abandoned, then that changed the pressure, and they had planned for that. And so, but when those water wells, and then 7 and 8 were taken off as well, which were city water wells, not because of any contamination with respect to this plume, but with regard to remediate or dealing with the C8 issue. So they've watched that, and in fact, all throughout the course of this, they have several different areas they monitor. The one that I think is most important to us is, do we have any of that contaminated groundwater moving toward wells 7 and 8, because we of course want those to be brought back online. All the sampling in what's called the Vienna well protection area has always been a non-detect for the PCEs, and that, for example, these non-detects indicated that the city of Vienna water supply remains protected. But as this plume is moving, and in fact, just like we changed from Triad to CMI, CDM Smith did the report in The last that I had which was completed in August of 2015. Now Cameron, as Councilman Conley indicated, has prepared the most recent report. So what they're proposing, even though the system is working very well and the concentrations have dropped substantially, they want to also monitor some of this groundwater migration. So they're recommending some additional groundwater wells. Again, that is no expense to the city of Vienna. We have no input on that. The other thing I did want to mention also is because we have put in the monitoring wells, the water wells for the Johns Manville site. Also, they are interested in our data that we're collecting for the Johns Manville site to add to their data pool with respect to monitoring the plume on the federal level, which of course our West Virginia DP is involved in as well. And it's that's to me is an easy decision that we want to make that data available to them to help them construct their tables as they do. So, with respect to the status of the plume, I did prepare, and it was because we've had these things go out, and I want to show you this briefly. A comparison of the size of the plume from 2005 to 2014. So I had a couple of those blown up. I want to show you real quick.
While Mr. Leach prepares his slides, there are two things that I would like to update you on. Henry, you've asked about Comores. They have tested our water for Gen X. There are no detectable levels of Gen X. And as a precaution, we also tested our wells for Gen X, and we also got no detectable levels for Gen X. Okay?
Get oriented here. Okay.
Jim, could you turn that slightly so that council can see that? Thank you.
Okay. All right, so this was the plume in 2005. All right, and the darker the color, just like a storm, the higher the concentration of PCEs. A couple of things when I mentioned the Johns Manville production wells. All right, they are here, 2 and 3. All right, 7 and 8 are water wells. They're not both shown here, but they're here and here. Okay, here was Busy Bee contamination, and here's Vienna Cleaners, and then here's the suspected third source. So these are the 3 sources of PCE contamination that they're monitoring. All right, so as they treat, and basically again, if everybody remembers about in 2005, they came in and put all those pipes in the ground in Vienna, and that's where they're injecting this air, and then they use an SVE system to pipe that up, capture it, and extract the PCE. All right, so this is 2005, what it looked like. All right, and again, here's the river, and the migration is south and west. Okay, so this way. All right, this was a high pump well, so they're concerned that they're not getting live samples from here. And then in this area, there is where they're saying if this is moving this way, they want some additional groundwater monitoring wells. And again, they'll get the data from the Manville site, from the wells that we put in to check the Manville level, any constituents of concern. So this is 2005. This is 2014, and when you compare, you can see the darker colors are all gone. Those have all been remediated. But also, as you can see, there's a little bit of movement of that plume, and that's what they're watching there. For these water wells up here, this TU2 right here, they installed a curtain there as a contingency plan to protect if any PCEs started moving. They have never brought that online because there's never been a detect there that caused them concern. And so that is there, and then of course now, and America could give a better update on what's going on with Comores and the carbon filter, but that carbon filtration system also, I think, would afford protection, not just from CE8, but also likely from the PCEs that are involved from this point. So that's kind of the update there. Again, the thing to keep in mind for citizens of Vienna, this is a federal Superfund site. We are not responsible for it. Of course, we're involved and we're provided the reports because it affects our citizens, but the remediation plan that they put in place is working clearly. And then, as far as just they're watching this migration as they continue to reduce this contaminant in our groundwater. And then that's the last thing I'll say is, with respect to this exposure pathway that I keep talking about, as I say, this is, shallow to moderate groundwater depths is where this is. They also do what are called vapor intrusion studies to see if any of these volatiles are affecting, and they've done that study as well. I haven't seen in the 2018 report any additional sampling of that. There was a discussion in 2014. I don't think it's been of any significant concern, but of course that's always, is there an exposure pathway that can affect our citizens? There is not. Vienna already has an ordinance that prohibits anyone from drilling out a water well in the city of Vienna. So there's not an opportunity for people to get involved with this groundwater that's below the surface. And so my understanding is, again, with respect to this PCE plume, there is not an exposure pathway that can affect our citizens. And this is a quick review, okay? So I can't say that I've gone, again, there's a 125-page report right there that I've seen for about 15 minutes. So that's the best I can tell you as far as this update on the plume and what's going on with this Superfund site.
Mr. Leach, you are correct. The Cameron folks use carbon filters to remove the PCE out of the water. And so all of our water wells are protected by carbon filters. So long range, we have double protection on that. But as the maps that Jim showed you indicates, that plume has reduced significantly. It's very, very small now. So we do continue to monitor it, and we will keep you updated on that. So any other comments or questions on the plume? All right. That concludes our agenda for this evening. We'll now move on to council comments. Yes, sir.
Mayor, a week ago Saturday, I believe it's the 16th, which was our first family fun weekend of the summer. I stopped by Spencer Park that Saturday evening, only because I drove by, and the size of the crowd caught my attention. And although I've been to many of them, I stopped that night. There was a huge crowd. And my understanding is the Saturday morning crowd was even larger. And during the time that I was there was several of our citizens, parents, who came up and talked to me and asked me if I would share with council and relay to the rest of council how much they appreciate council supporting those events and those family fun weekends for the kids. One mother in particular was crying, and she said, "My kids have never been to a movie." And she said, "This is the only opportunity that they get to see movies." And she was in tears. So it made me feel good as a council member to support that. And in addition, to have an outfit like Sam's Club that partners with us on doing those events, I think is a real positive thing. They're so well attended and so appreciated, and Linda does a good job coordinating those and scheduling the events and what have you. But again, I was asked to pass along to the rest of the council how much that those family fun weekends are appreciated.
I think that's one of the best things that we do in town. And I know, Steve, you're with us here tonight, and your involvement and your participation has stepped it up a notch. And I know that the next family fun weekend will be July 6th and 7th.
Correct.
And so it'll be a different band, but it'll be the same activities for the kids and another movie that night. And I'm not sure what the movie is, but anyway, July 6th and 7th will be the next family fun weekend. Roger, I think it's interesting that you brought that up, because I do believe that, you get comments from the community, and I think a lot of times we take for granted the fact that we've been to movies and we do lots of things, and then for someone to say that, it surely, truly appreciates the fact that we do provide things like that at no cost. And so it's a great event. And I think that we're blessed. That's one of the things about Vienna that I like so much is the fact that we have a great community to live in. And I hope you all have been paying attention. There's a tremendous amount of economic development going on in the city of Vienna right now. They announced this week the 2 new stores that are going into the old H.H. Gregg building. Alta and Five Below are both coming in. They're both major chains. And over in the old Elder Bierman store, the renovations continue on it, and H&M's going to go in there very, very soon. The Starbucks is going to open. And so it's very, very encouraging when you look at all the development that's coming. Vienna still is the pride of the valley, and the old days, Bill Owens used to always say the Miracle Mile, and we still are the Miracle Mile, and we've got the most wonderful people in this town, and I appreciate it so much. So thank you all. Any other comments this evening?
Just one. I know you all have probably had the same situation as I have over the last couple of weeks with all the rain, multiple phone calls and videos and pictures, and I know that's a long-term issue. I know it's not just Vienna, it's all over Parkersburg as well, but just people's basements flooding, garages flooding, streets flooding, and I told different people that I would bring it up tonight. So don't know what the answer is, and I know it's long-term and it's way down the road, but it's something we probably at some point in time probably do need to try to look at.
Well, it's looked at every day, because you're absolutely right. I don't believe there's anyone on this council that hasn't had comments about the incredible amounts of rainfall that we've had. There's no system made that can handle that amount of rain. But you're right, Roger. I spoke with Craig today. We're getting ready to implement the smoke testing so we can try to find some of the inflow that's coming into our sanitary sewers. We've got to slow that down. The problem is, and we've said this before, it takes manpower to run that. And I mean, it's just, we don't have enough people to get out there and do that. But we're going to have to find a way to get it done. But we are very concerned about the amount of water, and we're working on it to try to develop a long-range plan to get a better option. So anyway, we are working on that. So, all right. Any other council comments this evening? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
That box of background notebooks I brought you. Did you notice by any chance I had a bunch of minutes and notes in there, and I can't find it. Maybe I left it in that box. It's all stuff I can I'll look through my office. You still got it? We'll get on. I was